am the chosen one. Be brave, Professor. Be brave like my mother.
How do you feel?
Excellent. Really excellent.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 21, The Unknowable Room, and Elizabeth and Jenn are back with us.
Yay!
Yay!
Round two.
They came back for round two. This is less dense of a chapter, I think. Last chapter was, getting into the thick of the memories and all of Voldy's past. This one is a little bit more chill, but we still have a lot of action going on. We get the trio reuniting together in force to come up with any kind of conspiracies, because that's what they do. We get a Kreacher and a Dobby report, and we get some news updates and a scene in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, and we get some Tonks in this chapter, which we haven't had her in a chapter in a long, long time. We return to the trio being together again, working together as a group, which is always nice to see. Harry does his best impression of Hermione by poring over the potions book, the advanced potions making book, trying to find ideas to get the memory from Slughorn, and Hermione is like, "You're taking the complete wrong approach. If this was a spell, or if this was a potion, do you not think Dumbledore would be able to do this? Like, he chose you because he thinks you have something about you that Slughorn would find relaxing or find acceptable to then divulge the memory."
I do enjoy the irony of Hermione telling Harry to put the book down.
It is great irony. I do like that. He does stumble upon this spell that I have to mention very briefly, Sectum Sempra, and he notes it's for enemies. And Harry's like, I gotta try that. Mm-hmm. If it's for enemies, please, please, please don't try it on Ron like Levy Corpus. But anyway, we get some apparition successes. They talk about their brief successes that we just are learning about right now. Hermione was able to do it twice. Harry was able to do it once, and Ron was able to do it nonce. No times for Ron. Supposedly nearing the end of this, which they talk about with the upcoming exams to get your apparition license, I guess? I don't know. Do you have to carry that around with you? Do you get, stopped?
You just summon it.
I'm sorry, you just popped in here. Can you show me your apparition license?
Maybe if you splint yourself and it's like, okay, license and registration, please.
Before you actually fix the person?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how Ron is trying to do his homework. And he asks Hermione how to spell, what was it, belligerent or something like that? Mm-hmm. And he starts spelling it, and it's very much not anywhere near the actual word belligerent.
Nope.
Did you really have to ask for clarification on that?
I think some of my students have used this quill before.
He's using a quill that was from Fred and George's shop that was an auto spell check wand, and it's clearly wearing off, as his name is now Runel Wazalib. Well, I'm sure it would have been an entertaining homework assignment.
If I were saying, I'd be like, oh my gosh.
But, wow, I had low expectations for Ron, but now. Now.
I do like Hermione coming in with, the magic of just changing all the spelling. I'm just imagining the letters of the words literally just, rearranging themselves.
How cool would
or
that
something.
look? That would look so cool.
That's just such a fun magic.
And it's just a tap. It's just a tap of the wand.
Yeah.
I feel like this is some of that magic that we've read about in this series that's so seemingly simple, but so functional and practical that you could use on an everyday basis, but they just gloss over it like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. I think there was something that Harry did once, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, can we just stop? That was really cool magic.
It's when he changed the book covers.
Yes, that was it.
And it was like, it's so second nature. Yeah. Look at him.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, okay, we're just going to gloss over that, but that was really cool.
Yeah.
We do get some more Ron Lav talk. Ron wants to chuck her. I feel like that's an interesting choice of words.
Okay, here's my question with this, though. We know Hermione is spell checking Ron's homework at this point, and Ron is talking to Harry, being like, I want to chuck Lavender, and it seems like I can't seem to do it because he just grasps into me every time I hint at it. Do you think Hermione heard any of this conversation?
Oh, yeah.
Because I get the impression she took the homework and, like, went to the other side of the room. And they are doing whatever. And then she came back because she was better able to focus by getting away from the boys.
No, I think this was just literally just a gentle tap of her wand. I don't think she, like, put much thought or effort into it at all.
What do you think, Jen?
I think she was just chilling there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Ron, like, I get he wants to get rid of Lavender, but I feel like he also knows Hermione's interest in him, and her hearing that he's being like, I wish she would just, like, break up with me or something, and Harry just being like, so do it. Like, I feel like Hermione would be very not able to focus on Ron's homework if she heard that conversation.
I think there have been other times, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, where, like, they've all sat together, and she's been distracted, and they've, like, muttered together.
I can see that.
I kind of assumed that, like, she's there doing it, but they're having, like, a side convo.
She's tuning him out?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Or, like, they're like, you know, I'm gonna pray. Yeah, pretty much.
I know. I think she's hearing it.
Ron doesn't seem like the type to openly talk about that stuff in front of Hermione.
Yeah, because I feel like this is, he knows Hermione likes him and he likes her back.
Well,
and
so Ron, she's fixing his homework, and Ron goes,
he said, I love you, Hermione.
Yeah, I love you,
she
Hermione.
was like, well, don't let
Lavender hear you say that. And then
so
the conversation starts.
So I feel like if she said that and, like, blushed and continued to hear Ron being like, I can't wait to break up with her.
No, that's
interesting.
No, that's exactly how I think that went. Is he made the comment. She was like, don't let Lavender hear you say that, which means she heard that. And then why wouldn't she be hearing everything else that's right there?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good... I pulled it back up, and that is how the conversation starts, but then it says Ron is talking into his hands, and then it's him and Harry going back and forth, and then it's just he's watching Hermione silently tapping the words, and then 20 minutes later she hands him the essay.
Yeah, so I kind of get the impression that she, like, was like, okay, I can better focus over there. And then they're just like, oh, thank God for Hermione.
I don't know. I still think she's there and she's able to hear it, but she also, in my opinion, I think she just knows when to insert a comment and then when to not insert a comment and let that just go. But I don't want to skip over the other thing that Ron says, which is, it's not so easy to just chuck someone. It's like going out with a giant squid. She just squeezes tighter and tighter whenever I, like, try. I'm like, that's an interesting... that's just a lovely relationship that they have. That's wonderful.
Not toxic at all.
No. The common room eventually empties out, and it's stunningly the three of them just sitting there, which I feel happens often. Kreacher and Dobby then feel it is safe enough to apparate in, which Ron then feels jealous of. They just apparate in, and they have different types of reports.
Well, even before that, I do want to comment, like, Dobby says he hasn't slept at all. Kreacher says they've been following Malfoy night and day, and Hermione was scandalized by both of those comments. But if I went back to Harry's actual instructions, and he did tell them to stick to Malfoy, like, quote, a couple of wart plasters. So I feel like they did follow his instructions exactly how he said. He should have specified, yes, you can sleep and eat and, like, have a life.
Well, yeah, like... Hermione was clearly not thrilled about the abuse of these house elves. But Kreacher is telling his notes, I guess, on his tracking of Draco, and he ends up being just very evasive and vague, clever in how he's doing it, dancing around... Clearly what Harry's actually asking.
Meanwhile, Dobby still has PTSD, like, 4 years later from the Malfoys.
Poor Dobby.
I know. Once again, running to hit yourself.
That being said, even with the history between Dobby and the Malfoy family, he does say Draco's not technically breaking any rules that he's aware of. However, he does disappear to the 7th floor with lookouts. Which then, everybody... Harry realizes, oh wait, the room of requirement.
Only took him long enough.
Took him a while. And I can't blame Ron and Hermione for this because Harry's taken it upon himself to be relatively secretive about his stalking, especially after they showed initial displeasure at the idea of having to follow around Malfoy all the time.
I do have one comment about the room requirement because I did kind of go on a mini little tangent when I was reading about this. Ron said the reason why it wasn't on the map was probably because the Marauders didn't know about its existence, so they just didn't put it on the map. Hermione said, well, it's probably part of the magic of the room that it's unplottable, which, interestingly enough, according to like the Wizarding World, that's the only unplottable location within an unplottable location. Because Hogwarts itself is unplottable, so it's like the room requirement within Hogwarts. So I don't know about that, because if Hogwarts itself is unplottable, then in theory the Marauders shouldn't have been able to make a whole map about Hogwarts. But then there was the thought of maybe you can make a map of an unplottable location if you are within the location itself first. So it's possible that, yes, the unplottable magic of the room requirement makes it unable to be on the Marauders map. But I kind of lean more towards Ron's theory of, like, they just must not have found it.
I'll go with the unplottable theory.
And I think it was interesting, though, that it was the only unplottable place within an
Do you
unplottable
think
place.
That is pretty cool.
Do you think the
Yeah.
Marauders stumbled upon it in their time?
If they did, I don't think they necessarily realized what it was they were stumbling upon. I feel like maybe they did kind of like a Filch, where he thought it was just a broom closet with extra supplies. Like maybe it was just a classroom to hide in from Filch or something like that.
I mean, so the Weasleys didn't seem to know about it prior to the DA.
I think that's the magic of the room. It's like you think it's just whatever it is that you need, and therefore aren't impressed by it or go seeking it out again, because it's just like it's so mundane in your quick need for it. Like, I mean, who's walking by thinking like, I wish for a room full of carnivals and rainbows and magical unicorns? Like, you're just being like, okay, I need a place to hide. I need a place to use the bathroom. I need whatever it is that I need in this one moment.
So you're on the Marauders never stumbled upon it intentionally.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that's where I'm at with it. For all of those reasons.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Marauder... I think that the room could probably make itself unplottable, and it wouldn't be able to show up that people were inside of it on the map. But I feel like if the Marauders had found it, the room would have at least been on the map.
It'd be like label as,
Yeah.
like, here's the room.
Right,
And
like-
you can't see inside it.
Right. It
Yeah.
would exist, but you just wouldn't be able to see who or what was inside it.
Yeah.
If they
I don't know.
needed it to be unplottable.
I think the magic of the room is... It's one of those special kind of Hogwarts magics where it's like... Even if they put it down as, like, room of requirement, I think there's... The magic of the room allows it to almost be in multiple places at once if that's a thing that the person in it requires.
Right.
So then, how does that show up on the Marauders map?
Yeah.
Of,
I would
like,
see it as
now
just-
it's like,
Well, no, it
room
would
of
just-
requirement.
No, I would
just
just see
be
the
the
door.
room.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the door, this is the entrance to it.
Yeah, and
That's
that's,
all
it.
you get.
You
Yeah.
don't get any information about anything else that the room is doing or permutating or anything like that.
But then, the problem with that is there's not an actual door. It's a blank wall.
Well, that's what I think. Like, I mean, if there's the classroom for Transfiguration, like, you see Transfiguration maybe within the room itself. So maybe just, like, by the door is just really, really tiny, like, room of requirement, and that's all you get. That's what I'm picturing.
I don't know. I tend to lean into the mysterious magic of Hogwarts, and even the Marauders couldn't figure out a way around that type of ancient magic.
But I have a question, and it's related to the room of requirement, but not related to the Marauders.
Okay.
So if you have the room of requirement, are there limitations to like what the room of requirement can create?
Yes, I still believe the magic laws apply. So, like, food and water
Yeah.
can't be, like, just magically appearing in it.
If I
You
was
can
in
get a room,
Hogwarts,
like, a door to the kitchen,
okay.
and then get food that way, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, if I was in Hogwarts and I was, like, walking back and forth and I was like, I need a room for goat yoga, would they conjure the goats?
I think so.
I think that would be eligible.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
I really need some goat yoga right now. I appreciate that. Let us know if you like goat yoga. If you've ever done it before, leave us a comment. Specifically, leave a comment on
Jen's
Instagram.
looking for a place to go.
Specifically, leave a comment about goat yoga on Instagram at HogwartsAPod so Jen can see that. So
Well, I like he has finally come to this conclusion. There's another thing he has finally come to the conclusion about.
yeah, so before that, they get into a little dispute about Harry's like, oh, it's a room of requirement. Well, this will be good because now I can corner him. And both Dobby and Hermione are like, oh, not so fast. That's hard to do. And Harry dismisses it. He's like, no, I'll figure it out. Like, don't worry about it. I'm like, and I know he's caught up because now his obsession is starting to run away with him at this point. But if Dobby and Kreacher couldn't figure that out, and he's started to know the depth of house elf magic at this point, you should be like, oh, you know, if Dobby's saying he couldn't get into the room, that must be really hard to get into that room.
Yep.
I mean, we know Dobby got into the room to decorate it when they did it as the DA for, like, Christmas.
So Hermione points to everybody in the DA and Malfoy knew how to get into the room of requirement because they all knew what it was and what it was specifically, the headquarters of the DA. Done.
Yeah.
So they're starting to poke some holes in Harry's seemingly logical thoughts, but, you know, he's trying. Then he has this great line, which is just wonderful. I think it should be probably one of our like quotes underneath our Twitter or our Instagram of God, I've been stupid. Harry. Yeah. He then thinks back to Slughorn's first lesson where he had a vat of Polyjuice potion that was sitting on Malfoy's table that he could have taken however much Polyjuice potion he thought was sufficient and wreaked all kinds of havoc with it. And Harry finally realizes that. But yeah, his obsession is now fully reawakened.
I think it's interesting that Malfoy's having Crabbe and Goyle become girls instead of boys. And I don't know if it's a combination of, like, it's easier to find girls' hair in the common room to just steal because it's so long. Or if it's, well, girls would be seen as more innocent if just standing around as opposed to boys, it'd be like, what are you doing here? You know, like that sexist kind of thing. Or just a combination of the two. But I don't imagine Crabbe and Goyle are enjoying the experience.
So we do get some news updates the very next day. We get the news that Mundungus has been arrested and sent to Azkaban for impersonating an Inferi, which is just...
Well, he's impersonating one because he wants to burgle somebody.
Yeah, but that's still an enormously dumb thing to do. In this climate, that's what you're gonna try? Like,
well, Harry yelled at him last time he was trying to sell stuff for money, so...
With this Minister of Magic is not fudge. She will put you in Azkaban for sneezing in the wrong spot. Like, you're going to impersonate an fairy with that guy? Like, no, that's not what you should probably be doing. We also get an interesting name. Octavius Pepper has apparently vanished. And then we get maybe the darkest of the news. We get a 9-year-old was arrested for trying to kill his grandparents. They assume he was put under the Imperius Curse.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
That's sad. Yeah.
That shocks them all. Well, I mean, the news of Mundungus shocks them initially, but then that, I think, kind of all puts them into this, melancholy stupor of just like, wow, that's
dark.
That's a lot.
Hermione goes to class, Ron goes to finish his homework because he didn't do it last night. And then Harry wastes an hour in front of the room requirement just trying to get in there. And I liked his variations. It was like, I need to see what Malfoy is doing in here. That didn't work. I need to see the place where Malfoy keeps coming secretly. Also doesn't work. I need you to become the place you become for Draco Malfoy. And it just like over and over and over variations of like, what is Draco Malfoy doing in you? And it does not work.
Yeah, he does not crack this code at all. It would be like a reverse escape room. You're trying to get into the room instead of get out of it.
Do you think we could break in?
That would be fun. Let's find out.
I do want to mention this Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson, though, because it's kind of interesting. Seamus starts off with a question for Snape, which I feel like is just asking for trouble. But Seamus asks, hey, I heard the news about the Inferi. What's up with Inferi? Are they like ghosts?
I like how Snape immediately just shuts it down. I was like, no, that was just Mundungus. He's a smelly sneak thief.
Which is not inaccurate.
Okay, Snape.
For the record, not inaccurate.
Not inaccurate, but still like, oh, okay.
But
hard.
Harry jumps in and is like, well, shouldn't Snape be upset that a member of the Order has been arrested? Like, shouldn't that upset him?
Why would Snape show that?
Exactly.
It's Harry wanting to poke holes at Snape because he doesn't like him.
It's just silliness, though. I mean, now you're just taking shots to take shots instead of actually thinking about, like, what do you want Snape to say there? Oh, man, he really hurt the Order of the Phoenix by being arrested. Oh, man, he really hurt all of their plans. Oh, man, no, what are you doing? No.
I'm so upset by this turn of events.
Oh, yeah, I was really close friends with Mundungus Fletcher. No.
We were together in the Order of the Phoenix. Have I mentioned I was in the Order of the Phoenix?
Cover blown.
Come on.
World's worst spy.
Honestly, I don't even blame Snape for being like, Potter, what is the difference between an Inferi and a ghost? I don't even blame him at all for putting Harry on the spot for that. But Harry gives...
To be fair, it's his favorite pastime.
It's true, but this is fair. Harry gives brilliant analysis. He says, well, ghosts are transparent. This is supposed to be a body. Bodies are usually solid. And Snape is like, that is truly intelligent. That is...
6 years of magical education have helped you see if you can see through something or not.
Yeah. Really, really spot on. Snape then goes into an actually fairly eloquent explanation. He says, Inferi are corpses that have been reanimated by a dark wizard. They are merely a puppet for that dark wizard's bidding.
So they're like zombies, but dark wizards can control them.
Correct. Ghosts are an imprint of a departed soul left upon the earth. Much more than transparent. But yes.
What do you think nearly headless Nick would have thought of that conversation?
He would have been offended by Seamus even asking the question, most likely. And then he also would have been offended by Harry just being like, transparent?
They're transparent.
Like, I'm more than just a transparent entity. But he probably would have
some depth here.
Yeah. He would have agreed with Snape's definition, I assume. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously some banter between Snape and Harry. And Ron chirps in with his 2 cents, and then Snape cuts across him with like, why would I even listen to a person that can't apparate 2 inches across a room?
But I mean, Ron actually has some good points with this one, where he's defending Harry based on the physical characteristics that Harry's describing by saying that that's going to be more useful to immediately identify someone in a battle. He's technically not wrong.
He's technically not wrong.
Honestly, I feel like the original question in general is fairly stupid. Like, you know what a ghost is. You've seen them all over the castle.
That's also fair.
Yeah.
Which, it immediately could tell that Snape has a higher tolerance threshold for Seamus than Ron or Harry. He didn't really even entertain the question. He wanted to dismiss it.
Yeah.
But then Harry had to input his 2 cents, and then he couldn't help himself.
Still low blow from Snape to be like, oh, the boy's so solid, he can't apparate half an inch across the room. It's like...
Yeah, that's a rude,
It's rude.
Not teacher-esque behavior.
No. Speaking of teacher-esque behavior, I did want to point out, he's been teaching them the unforgivable curses, even though they've learned them technically back in their 4th year.
So the order of this seemed to be Imperious Curse, Dementors, and then Cruciatus Curse, right? Mm-hmm. That was the order of the last 3 lessons. Because they did Imperious Curse, and then they apparently just had the Dementor homework of best ways to repel a Dementor or whatever have you. And now the next lesson that they start on at the very end of this debacle is turn to page, whatever the page is, Cruciatus Curses. So yeah, I don't know that Snape is going to be giving the same type of instruction that Barty Crouch Jr. I'm going to just go out on a limb and assume that.
It just makes me wonder what is left to discuss about the curses that he didn't cover back in their 4th year.
Well, I imagine... So this is apparently the appropriate time to discuss those.
Yes.
Year 6, year 7, and then you can kind of get into them a little bit more in-depthly. My question, just from interest, and I don't have an answer to it, I'm just interest, but my question would be, once you go on to like being an Auror or someone in the magical law enforcement or something like that, what's the additional information that you get on like unforgivable curses or things like that that you can't get in year 6 and 7 at Hogwarts? That would be interesting to me. What's that extra education? But anyway.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So I don't know what the difference between those two teachers are, and I would only assume that they have immensely different teaching styles. And they also hated each other. So there was a bunch of things there. You know, they get in that in the Prisoner of Azkaban movie, you get like Snape talking down Lupin's teaching style, and he's like, "Oh, you haven't learned about this. Clearly your teacher's slacking, blah, blah, blah." I can only imagine what he's like. Your teacher back in the 4th year was an idiot. Like, I can only imagine what that was like. But anyway, they leave the classroom, and Lavender comes up and actually defends Ron and gives him like a little bit of a pep talk about like, wow, that was really bad of Snape to kind of jab the apparition difficulties. And Ron's like, whatever, and then darts into the boys' bathroom.
I feel so bad.
That was the correct reaction to be having as like a significant other. I'm trying to defend you here.
I think Lavender was great in that instance.
She's trying, man.
Yeah, she actually put forth an effort there. And if I'm Lavender, honestly, I'm looking at Ron's response and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why doesn't she just like cut it off?
I think she does like him.
Yeah.
Like, I think she really is trying to make it
Work.
And she's putting an effort, and she probably remembers the good times and just wants it to go back to
the good times of them snogging in the common room and snogging in the Great Hall and snogging in a random empty classroom.
They're teenagers.
Yeah, so they run away from Lavender.
Poor Lavender.
They escape into the boys' bathroom, and they run into, I think, and I should not speak ill of Myrtle, but I think a worse distraction.
Ouch.
Yeah, I shouldn't speak ill of Myrtle, because we've talked about on the podcast how, honestly, Myrtle is a much more empathetic and sympathetic character than I think a lot of people do realize. Go back to the Chamber of Secrets and get into her story more in-depthly.
She's not that bad.
No, she's not trying to, like, make out with Ron.
That's not a terrible result. Yeah, I'm like...
But that's not even a bad thing, because it's his girlfriend who's trying to do it.
Right. No, but Myrtle is obviously not the most pleasant to be around for obvious reasons. And honestly, I know you two went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which we'll get to in a little bit. But one of the things in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter that disturbs me the most is when you go use a restroom and you hear Myrtle in the restroom. It is disturbing. I feel disturbed every single time.
I don't know if I've heard it, honestly.
It bothers me every single time.
Okay.
I'm like, I feel uncomfortable.
I don't think we went in her... It's not all of the bathrooms. It's just one of the bathrooms.
Which bathroom was it?
I can't remember, but we didn't... I don't think we went in it this trip.
Okay.
I went in it recently. I don't remember when.
Yeah, it bothers me every time.
Why?
I don't know. It's just creepy. It's weird having someone like talk to you as you. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I can't. It's weird. You got to experience
Maybe
it.
this is like a girls versus boys thing.
Yeah,
like I've had so many
talk to each other
conversations in the bathroom
time.
that it's not even. It barely registers.
But it's not
to
just
me.
that. It's not just that. It's the fact that it's a ghostly like conversation.
Again, consider who you're talking to.
And it's Moaning Myrtle on top of it. It's weird. It's creepy. Just experience it. Elizabeth is now distracted by ghosts. Thank you for that very much.
How many morbid conversations have we had in the bathrooms? Like, probably so many.
Probably a lot. Yeah.
And you know what? You two might not have been weirded out by it, but someone else in the bathroom was weirded out by it. Oh man. Bet you didn't think this podcast would take that turn. But anyway.
Oh, we're fun.
We'll get to their experiences in the Wizarding World here very shortly. But
Can I say one of my favorite Myrtle quotes? When she said that, like, neither Ron or Harry were the boy that she was hoping to come back to see her. She said, quote, "I've learned not to expect too much from boys."
That's such a mood.
It's such a mood. And it's such a teenage girl mood. I love it.
Teenage girl, 20s, 30s.
Oh, gosh.
We will get a little bit of Myrtle in the spoiler section, so we will get to that. We have Harry continuously being unsuccessful with both Slughorn and the Room of Requirement. They do make a very clear note that Harry has actually genuinely been trying to get the memory from Slughorn this time. He's made those efforts. However poor or unsuccessful they have been, he's tried. And he's unable to get into the Room of Requirement still, after a week.
I identify with Slughorn here, though, because they said sometimes he'll knock on Slughorn's door and he can hear music just, like, really quickly turn off. And I just think of, like, anytime a neighbor has knocked on my door and I'm like, I'm not home. Like, be really quiet because I don't want to deal with people.
So as Harry is trying to get into the Room of Requirement, he runs into a familiar face. He gets so frustrated by trying to get into the Room of Requirement that he actually ends up kicking the door. The cloak falls off and he ends up falling over.
He's an idiot.
It's fun because
Not
it's
great.
parallel to the last time he ran into Tonks. He was with the invisibility cloak laying on the ground and she found him in a place he didn't want to be
train.
in.
Yeah. And he literally says, like, or in his own head, he doesn't say this out loud, but in his head he's like, why does she always find me when I'm like falling over and on the ground? So she mentions that she was just seeing Albus and just wanted to have a conversation with him, but he's not at his office. And Harry notes that she looks bad. She looks really bad. She's thinner, lank, mousy hair. She's not doing too well.
Here's my question, though. We know his office, the entrance to the office, is on the 3rd floor. So why come all the way up to the 7th floor? Like, you think she's just wandering because she's just, like, in a mood or just out of it or what?
I think so. Or, like, did she check the office and then he wasn't there, so she's just
Like,
wandering
wandering
to see if
to
she
find
could
him?
catch him? Yeah.
Maybe. She just seems like to go up to the 7th floor from the 3rd floor is a bit of a wandering.
Yeah, that's a...
Well, she could have, because you know Hogwarts is weird. She could have been absentmindedly walking and then gone into some like secret passageway and then like popped out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Hogwarts is weird like that. So I could have just had one of those moments.
Maybe.
She asks Harry if he's heard from anyone in the Order recently, and he says he hasn't heard from anyone in the Order since Sirius passed away. That's kind of stopped and dried up. And
She starts to cry.
yeah, she starts to have an emotional reaction, and Harry's like, oh, I didn't mean to mention Sirius. I'm sorry. Like, I'm feeling, sad about it too. And she's just not even like listening and says, I'm sorry. I'm going to go away. And she like walks away. And then we meet up with Ron and Hermione after they have returned from apparition practice. And Ron actually moved.
Woo!
Kind of, sort of,
Good
barely. But he
job,
moved.
Ron.
He did move. Hermione did a perfect apparition, and she moved with such deliberation, divination, and desperation.
Maybe this is why Ron is sucking so much of this, because he can't remember the 3D.
100%. I don't think there's a doubt. You know what? I get it. He's tying divination, the word divination, to Hermione because of her trauma. But I could see that one maybe, but anyway. But he tells them of his interaction with Tonks. Harry tells them of that interaction, and he then goes to say, I think Tonks is in love with Sirius. And then that's kind of where the chapter kind of dwindles off. And I'm like, Harry, no. That's not how that works. I believe they're related, and I believe they're related fairly closely. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I'm saying that's not happening here. I believe they're like first cousins or first cousins once removed, somewhere in that realm. But
well, give him credit for being like, oh, this is a weird reaction for her to be having. Maybe she was in love and it's a heartbreak kind of thing. Hermione kind of considered it for a second and was like, I don't know about that. And Ron's just like, woman, they're easily upset. And Hermione's like, excuse me, who was the one who sulked for half an hour because Madame Rosmerta didn't laugh at his joke? Wasn't a woman. Just saying.
I love Hermione for just immediately calling him out.
I do like that comment, though. It's just, woman, they're usually upset.
Yep.
Like, oh, Ron, the emotional teaspoon that you are. So great.
We'll wrap it up here, and we will return with the spoiler section after the break. We do have a shout-out to get to. You two, we'll talk a little bit about your Wizarding World experience, and then we'll actually get into spoilers from this chapter. So we will be right back. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Where is he? Where's my 1-1?
All right, so we're back with the spoiler section of Chapter 21, and I wanted to start out with a shout-out from AV again. Thank you again for the comment. Let's see what AV has to say about Half-Blood Prince Chapter 18 Birthday Surprises, recent episode. AV goes, concerning Slughorn, now we understand why he didn't want to take the position in the first place. Concerning apparition, how come Voldy doesn't apparate and only does broomless flying? Concerning Slughorn, obviously he's not wanted to be terribly close to Dumbledore and potentially fork up the memory. I think Dumbledore does a pretty good job of selling him on the, hey, look, come back, you'll teach potions, it'll be a comfort zone for you. Oh, by the way, Harry Potter.
Very subtle.
It's a great recruiting pitch by Albus.
Uh-huh.
But, Slughorn not super thrilled to be in such close proximity to someone he knows is trying to deceive him. Apparition and Voldy. I know in the movies they really push the image of Voldy doing the broomless flying with the cloud of black smoke moving, and I think the Death Eaters also do it quite often in the movies. I don't know that Voldy only does broomless flying. I think he probably does apparate quite often.
I think the first instance of him doing the broomless flying was when they have the 7 Potters. Because afterwards they were like, oh, did you know that he can do it without, like, a broom now?
Yes, he's broomless flying in that 7 Potters scene, yes. But then later in the book, I believe he's apparating in and out. Like at the Battle of Hogwarts.
I think he is. I don't think he just does the broomless.
And then in the movie, I know he definitely apparates.
In the movie, he's 100% apparating.
Yeah.
There.
So
Because I remember, like, the snake comes near him and then he twists out.
Yeah. So my interpretation of it is, I think for just casualness and quickness, he'll apparate in and out when it's just more him or maybe around 1 or 2 Death Eaters or whatever. But if he's trying to show off or be a little bit more flashy or a little bit more intimidating or ominous, then he'll use the broomless flying technique to kind of just establish a little bit more fear and dominance. That would be my interpretation. I don't know how you two kind of see it.
I agree. I feel like that broomless flight is creepy.
The smoke also makes it creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, which I don't know if that's just the movie adding that in or what, but it's a nice touch. I'll give the movie that.
Ooh. Never thought I would hear that.
They have some interesting details in the movies that I think you would appreciate. Like the idea of his garments becoming more and more faded.
Yeah.
As
the Horcruxes get destroyed.
Yeah.
I just learned that the other day.
Yeah. It's a cool little fact, isn't it? Like, they'll do some cool stuff, but no one really ever knows. That's a big thing with just costume design. There's a lot of stuff that goes into costume design.
Costume design is always super
and
cool.
No one appreciates it because you can't really see it very well.
Yeah.
But, like, I remember when we did, sorry, I'm switching fandoms, but I remember when we did the Marvel exhibit when it came through, and you saw, like, T'Challa's Black Panther, and there was a bunch of writing and like, runes stuck through it. Like, it was, like, really...
It's super detailed.
Really cool, and you just don't see that on a movie screen. But anyway, I digress. We hope that answered the question, AV, and kind of filled in some of those blanks. I don't know. Let us know.
Thank you for your comments. We're enjoying them.
We are. You're presenting debate, so we always enjoy that. We also had just a quick comment about Snape and Harry disagreeing on Dementors. So the Dementor homework that Snape set, they obviously, that's the homework that Ron was struggling with, the misspelling Quill. And Harry's like, I'm struggling with this. I'm just going to do it. Whatever. I know he disagrees with my take on how to get rid of Dementors. And it's such a throwaway line, but I'm like, I'm sorry. What does Snape think of as getting rid of Dementors? And I get we've only had one perspective. We've only had one individual teaching that, per se, with Remus and Harry. So that's our only view of how to get rid of Dementors that's been presented to us. However, when the story in Order of the Phoenix at the trial was presented, and Harry's like, hey, this is what I did, this is all of the events of it, I have a witness, and witness, whatever. No one raised an eyebrow, and they're all like, oh, okay, well, you only do that in case of Dementors. So it seemed like everything's funneling us towards one way of dealing with Dementors, but now Snape's presenting a second one. Thoughts?
Well, I was looking a little bit. I had a thought, and then I wanted to see what other people thought online, and I saw a thought that confirmed mine, and a thought that was different that I disagree with. So I'll start with the one I disagree with. They thought that Snape would prefer the non-corporal version of the spell as opposed to the corporal one. So, for example, when we saw Lupin in the train the very first time when the Dementors stopped by, he shot silver stuff. They didn't actually have, like, a form. The thought was, like, Snape wouldn't want to reveal his Patronus because it's so personal and identifying to him that it would be better to keep it secret. I disagree. I feel like having the corporal Patronus would be stronger and therefore way more successful, which is what we've seen with Harry. I think Snape is probably more along the lines of, instead of going with the very happy memory to protect yourself, try to go more like the occlumency route and just remove all emotions so that there isn't any happiness to suck away from you. And I think that's kind of what, like, the Death Eaters do in Azkaban too, of just try to disconnect yourself from any emotions that would feed the Dementors and survive by being like a void that they can't steal anything from.
Interesting. I thought the idea of the corporeal versus non-corporeal Patronus is also interesting. And I could see Snape's point of view of, like, that's revealing something personal about yourself, and you don't know that you'd really want to necessarily volunteer that personal information, but that's very...
Especially around
Snape.
Harry, because it's like, if he did, he'd see that it's the doe, and he'd be like, further questions. Although I don't think Harry would actually ask further questions, because, let's be real, it's Harry Potter.
Harry's not going to put it
He's not
together.
smart enough to put 2 and 2 together in this case.
I guess my question is, can you then specifically control that? Whether it's corporeal or not?
I don't know.
Is that a more advanced version of the spell?
I wonder if it's like the strength of the memory, maybe, or the amount of Dementors that you need to protect yourself from.
Maybe.
Or maybe too, like when they were checking the train, it was kind of like, we're doing this not in an attack mode, but as like we're ordered to protect mode. At least the Dementors are using that excuse. So maybe it's like you didn't need as strong of a Patronus in that case. You know what I mean?
That's just an interesting thing. Do you need like a more specific technique to be able to differentiate between the two? Mm-hmm. Is that like an added skill that you learn in either a more advanced Defense Against the Dark Arts class, or like aura training, or something like that?
Or maybe it's like the degree of the focus, like similar to apparition. If you can't focus well enough, you're going to splint yourself. If you can't focus enough on the memory, then you just get the silver sparks as opposed to like an actual form.
I also like the idea of Snape doing occlumency, or the Death Eaters in Azkaban deploying occlumency to shield themselves. I think that's an interesting idea. Mm-hmm. I don't know how successful that might be, because I feel like just the aura around Azkaban and Dementors is so permeating. I don't know how successful that tactic could be.
I wonder more if Snape would use that route because he lacks so many happy memories to really have a Patronus enough times. Because he's had a rough life.
Yeah. Jen, what do you think?
I don't know. No, I think there are good points for both of those. I think the only question that I would have is if he was sending out the non-corporeal form, wouldn't that still be rooted in like the same spell? Because to me it sounded like if Snape wants to deal with it a different way, I would be more inclined to lean towards like the occlumency route, just because that is a different way of doing it versus like form versus no form.
Yeah, for him to disagree with how Harry's saying to do it. Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense.
Would be my own... Like, I completely agree, though, that, like, I don't think Snape's going to want the form to reveal himself. Like, I think he's a fairly private person, so if you can just do a couple wisps, like, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. Or maybe there's a secret third way that we just don't know.
We are unaware of.
Befriend them. They won't come after you if you're friends with them.
But
Snape's like, you have to offer them a nice cup of tea.
Harry's like, oh, he's not going to like my essay. If you present the Patronus thing, however which way he wants to present the Patronus way, you can't knock him down. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to give him a C? You can't fail him on
what
that.
The book said. Like, because I'm sure that the textbook had some instructions about, like, this is what you do when you're faced with a Dementor.
Still, it'd be an effective way to do it. So,
yeah.
And that got him the O in the owl, the OWL. So, like, you can't knock him for it. Like, you have to give him the A.
You can
Worst
if
B.
you're a biased teacher like Snape.
Oh, I got a story about an English teacher about that. But anyway, we'll save that for an off-air story.
Can we please specify that I was not that English teacher?
You were not that English teacher. Anything else on the Snape with Dementors conversation? Mm-mm. All good there? The other thing I wanted to talk about was a little bit of Myrtle again, because she keeps referencing this boy that she thought Harry and Ron might be, but was quite disappointed by the sight of them. And she was, or has been, talking to Draco Malfoy.
And she described him as being, he's sensitive, people bully him too, he feels lonely and hasn't got anybody to talk to, and he's not afraid to show his feelings and cry.
That's an interesting description of Draco.
Not the kind we usually get.
Nope.
You know?
And to be fair, obviously this is a spoiler, so we can say Draco, but when we were first reading this, I don't think any of us necessarily were thinking Draco Malfoy during this moment.
Nope.
We were probably thinking what Harry and Ron thought. Oh, this is some first year that's struggling with whatever exam or whatever have you. This is interesting. If we're taking this as Draco Malfoy, which we know it to be, the people bully him line, I think, is interesting. So, who do you take as bullying Draco?
Voldemort?
Voldy?
I was thinking Harry and Ron.
Harry and Ron?
Yeah.
Other Death Eaters?
Yeah.
Some of his other Slytherins?
I was about to say some of his other Slytherins.
He's starting to get some pushback from Crabbe, from Goyle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
we know he's under a lot of pressure right now of you have to succeed or else your family is going to die. I could see Bellatrix is even bullying him too.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Yeah. So, I think this is the first window, and Jen, you could probably correct me on this if I'm wrong, but this is probably the first window that you really get of Draco being an empathetic figure, and B, a Slytherin being an empathetic figure.
It's great. That's one of the reasons that this is my favorite book, is because I think that there's so many good representation of interpersonal relationships. Like, the love triangles, I think, are annoying to read when they drag on for a really long time. But they are a good representation of, like, typical teenage drama.
Yeah.
This, I think, is a really good way of humanizing Draco, and then, therefore, actually giving some nuance and complexities to Slytherins, which is super exciting, and I love it. And the movie version, I think, also does a phenomenal job of this, too, because the one scene of Draco with the bird in the vanishing cabinet, where it's playing, like, the music, and it gets super sad, and, like, he seems super sad, and he seems super stressed, and it's like, it does show a different side to him, and up through these books, we've just seen the mean bullying Draco. Now we're getting glimpses of, like, okay, he has some compassion for the bird that just died. Okay, he is stressed out. Okay, he is having a bad time. And it does start to raise a couple more questions of, oh wait, he is also getting bullied. He is a bully, but he is currently getting bullied. He is currently in this terrible position where he's responsible for the wellness of his family. And this particular storyline is also, since we're in the spoiler section, I can talk about it, is one of the reasons why I was so disappointed that there wasn't actual redemption for him at the very end, because it felt like this was going to be the build to it. This felt like this was when they were starting to weave it in. It's like, okay, we are going to get some Slytherin redemption. We are going to see some positive things. It is going to be this, like, heartwarming, not heartwarming,
He steps
but
up
like
and helps Harry.
positive. Yes, like it's a beautiful redemption arc that shows that you can still be cunning and ambitious and not an evil person. Just in it, he grew up in the wrong circumstances. He overcomes it. It's great. It's heartwarming. Everybody's happy, and then that never happened.
It would have been
so disappointing.
It would have been a nice counter to see a positive thing as opposed to like Snape and James or Snape and Sirius, how that always just ended with like, we hate each other.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, we've overcome, or like even Harry and Dudley a little bit. Like we see a little bit of redemption there. Not enough, I would say, but it would be nice to see that with Draco.
And this was something too that I was genuinely surprised at when I mentioned this on last week's episode, and I'm really not the type of person to like read a lot of fanfics and stuff. But I was actually genuinely surprised at like how believable some of the redemption arcs were that I saw people write in some of these stories. And it really just made me more sad that wasn't something that got incorporated, because it didn't take much effort to make you sympathize with Draco and to make you start to trust Draco. Even when there were, like, I thought that a lot of the ones that I read did a really good job of portraying, like, the distrust that still existed between Harry and Draco. Like, it wasn't something where, like, you wake up and it's like, he's part of the team now. But, like, they fleshed it out in such a nuanced way that it felt believable. And then, like, when you come back and you read these books, and it's like, wow, this is very one-dimensional. So it's just exciting for me, because it's like, I finally get some additional nuances of Slytherin. Yay!
Draco is a lightning rod for a lot of fan fiction in a lot of different ways. But that, I think, is some of the most intriguing fan fiction of different routes of redemption stories for him, which I think there's a wealth of paths you can go with that.
Yes.
And they're all fascinating.
Yes.
And I also agree with you that the movie does a really good job of showing, and Tom Felton does a great job of emoting that, like, tortured, not doing well, struggling.
I love the scene in the movie where they're showing him looking in the bathroom mirror, and he's, like, on the edge of having a breakdown, and then Harry comes in, and you see him, like, have to change to, like...
Yes. That is... So, the thing about Draco Malfoy is... There's two things. There's the easy look at him, which is, oh, he's a bully, and a lot of bullies have their own issues, and that's why they bully. That's the easy trope to put out there. I think the character of Draco Malfoy is really interesting because early on, you see him clearly put up a wall.
Yep.
He needs to be a Malfoy. He needs to put on that show of, like, I'm good, I'm solid, I'm smart, I'm talented, I'm rich. I'm everything that you want to be and can't be.
Yes.
And then that's the visage that he puts out there, the image that he wants to project. And here is the first glimpse behind that shield of the actual human being, Draco Malfoy.
Yes.
Who is Draco Malfoy?
And it's funny because for all of the times that I've read the books, it's easy to fall into... He's the bully, he's mean, he's picking on Harry, he's not like the enemy.
Not vindicating all of the stuff that he's done.
Right. No, right. No one
Just to be
is.
clear.
But like, no, right, 100%.
Yeah.
He should not have done any of those things.
Right.
I think we can all agree. But I think it's a lot easier when you read these books to put him in that basket of just, it's the spoiled rich kid who's arrogant, who's bullying Harry, poor Harry, mean Draco. And you start to, like, the hints of this now, and then it starts to build up a little bit more, is it really starts, when you think about it, to paint this really unpleasant picture of his upbringing. Because he's got very cold parents. He's got an aunt who's nuts.
Mildly. Like, that's putting it very mildly.
He's been raised his entire life to believe in blood supremacy. So even though he does believe in it, which is problematic, it's his default belief because that's what he's been taught is right. And then he goes to school and he's getting his butt kicked by this witch who's the brightest witch of her age who has zero blood history. So he has to start to wrestle with, like, there's so much more complexity in Draco. I want so much more. I want a couple more books of this. Like,
Well,
let's bring him back into
It's starting to get chipped in the 6th. At the
That's
end,
what I'm
the last
saying.
third of the
Yes.
6th book.
Yes. It's much too, it's good that it's here. It's much too late, and it's a shame that the arc doesn't complete in this 7th book. Like, you should have started this in 4 or 5 and then ended it in 7. Like,
The image they want to give in the
could've been
epilogue
good.
of the 7th is that there has been some level of redemption there between the two of them, but yes, you obviously
barely.
skip.
He's like a sentence.
There's a massive gap there
Yes.
that we don't see, that clearly they've at least gotten on amicable terms.
I feel like the time for it, and we can talk more about this in the next book, is honestly the when they're in the room of requirement.
Yeah.
And they're hunting
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He should have, in my opinion, he should have been the one to get rid of that Horcrux. He should have done something more demonstrative of his allegiance changing. I hate in the movies where they show the scene where the 3 of the family get together and then they just turn around and they run out. I hate nothing more in the entire series than that one moment because that's such a cop-out. And it's also frustrating that then, like, they take that and then they hint, like, oh, well, he and Harry are, like, sort of on good terms. They don't have to be on good terms.
Yeah.
I'm fine if the books end and Draco and Harry still hate each other's guts. That's not the redemption that I want for Draco.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. And I see everything that you just said. I'm not even going to say but. I will say, though, that I get where they were going with that ending.
Yeah.
Because it's how many families have been destroyed by these wars. The first one and the second. I mean, there have been decimations. Family lines have gone out. Speaking of family lines have disappeared.
Yeah.
Devastation, heartache. The Battle of Hogwarts saw a family crippled with Lupin and Tonks.
Yeah.
Just Fred, like, just crippled. One member of a massive family, and you saw the devastation that wrought upon them.
Yeah.
And then you see Draco, Narcissa, and Lucius, and they're like, we have our family together.
Yeah.
Forget all of this. We're out. Like, we're keeping this. Narcissa saves Harry because she's like, you know what? I'm done with all of this. I'm done with all of this. Let me get my son and get out. Yeah. So, I mean, you could... I'm not disagreeing with anything because it's correct, everything you said. But there's another side to it, too, where it's like, I get where that was going to.
I completely agree with all of what you're saying. And I actually really like that the whole scene where Narcissa actually does her, like, little small revolt against Voldemort where she's trying to see how things are. But I just wish that if that was the angle that they were going for, I just think that they could have done it in a better way. I wasn't satisfied.
You wanted a fuller, complete...
Yes.
Gotcha.
Because I think part of what I didn't like about that scene was it just felt like, okay, we need to resolve where the Malfoys are in 10 seconds. Let's have them get together and walk away. Like, if you're going to make that family argument, which I'm 100% for... I think it could have been done in a better way.
To your point, I'm putting a lot of interpretation on it.
Yeah.
It's not like they told me or showed me anything like that. I'm putting my interpretation over the top.
And I think that's a reasonable interpretation of it. I just don't... They didn't do it in a way that felt satisfying to me.
That's fair.
To be fair, there's another reason why the scene is here. And it's because we need to have some pity for Malfoy, because the next scene that we're going to be seeing with him is when Harry is using Sectum Sempra on him. And it does show Harry as a bully. He is going to be forever cut by this spell, which is horrifying. And it does horrify Harry. And I think that's another moment that could have been like, oh, wow, I am the bully here. I've gone too far and I need to rectify things and really take a look at this relationship with this Slytherin and realize, like, how did we even get here? I shouldn't think of anybody as my enemy other than Voldemort, who's trying to kill me.
Yeah.
Now,
Which is a fair enemy
to have.
But that's a great point, though, because it says 4 enemies.
Yes.
So that's a specific delineation, not 4 rivals.
No.
I think Harry and Draco are rivals.
Yes.
Quidditch rivals, academic rivals, whatever you want to put that. Enemies has a definite connotation going in a more aggressive route.
Right.
I also really like the point you brought up that I didn't like that this is to paint, specifically done to paint Malfoy in a sympathetic light because he's about to get.
Right. Because, I mean, if we've just seen he's been sketchy and he's always insulting and all that, and when they're in the bathroom, I mean, Malfoy does pull out his wand because Harry sees him in this vulnerable state. If we hadn't heard Myrtle make the comment of, like, yeah, this kid who's been crying has felt lonely and bullied. He has no one to talk to. He's so overwhelmed with emotions that he's literally crying, and he's so sensitive about whatever's going on in his life. If we didn't know that information, it would just be like, oh, Malfoy's trying to attack Harry. Of course he has to defend himself.
Well, here's the thing about that. On our we're doing this as a spoiler section. We've read this book multiple times. Mm-hmm. We know that that's Draco. On our first read, we're with Harry and Ron being like, whoever that is, Myrtle's talking to somebody. We don't know yet. And I think that's what she does really well in writing some of these books is when we get to the end and we know Draco's full arc in this book, we go then back and we're like, oh, wow. That was a little bit more of an emotional punch for us as a reader. And, you know, Harry does with the Sectum Sempra have that moment of like, whoa, I've overstepped. Mm-hmm. But us as readers, I think this is one of those instances where it's like we catch it on a reread and it hits us like 10 times harder of like, oh, wow, that's deep. And then we have this discussion of going deep diving into Draco Malfoy as a character, which is a fascinating deep dive. Yeah. And I brought this up on a previous episode, and I want to get your 2 cents on it, Jen, of, you know, this book doesn't have a real set antagonist. Like, we have...
Umbridge.
We have Umbridge. we have Barty Crouch Jr., who's there the entire time as Moody, but essentially there the entire time. We have, the Chamber of Secrets and all of that. We have a bunch of antagonists. Yeah. Here, we don't really have a set one. We don't know that it's Draco. It is Draco in this book. Yeah. But we don't know it for so long. We're less than 10 chapters from the end here. Like, we're almost done.
That's crazy. And
we're just broaching Draco as a major player in this book now. Because he's barely been mentioned as just like an offshoot or a focus of Harry's stalking. Yeah. But here we're getting him now. Yeah. And I just think it's such an interesting flip. And that's why I always refer to this book as not really its own book. I don't really think of it as book 6. I think of it as an elongated introduction
to book 7.
Yeah. Okay. Is all it really is. Mm-hmm. That's how it plays out to me. Okay. And then that, like, the big scene at the end of this book is like your snap, okay, now you're in it. Yeah. And now you go with book 7. Book 7 takes off. Yeah. So that's my view on this. And part of that is Draco's antagonist doesn't really jump in until chapter 22, 23. You know, it's like, this is only a 30-something chapter book. Like, I think it's 30 chapters. Yeah. So it's like, it's late in the game.
I feel like for me, I'm going to compare this to a TV show. It's kind of like a TV series that starts as like a Monster of the Week show. And then slowly over time develops a long overarching plot. And for me, I like the long overarching plot. So the first couple books, they feel very
one shot.
Book 1 is book 1. Book 2 is book 2. Book 3 is book 3. Like they're very. This is the intro. This is the enemy. This is the resolution. This is the happy ending, right? Like, and it's okay. Book 2 is the same. I like that this book doesn't have a defined antagonist. It's got hints of Malfoy. It's got we're finding out because this book is the most satisfying to me because I hate the last book, and I hate the last book because we get no information. Like it takes until the end for Dumbledore to be like, I guess I should probably tell you stuff. And then book 6 is like, I'm going to tell you all of this stuff. And it's like, I love the knowledge dump. I love the backstories. I like the nuance that this book brings to all of the previously established characters.
Clarify, you meant last book as in Order of the Phoenix, not last book as in Deathly Hallows.
Yes, sorry, I meant
Just
last
clarify.
book. Sorry, I meant last book
Yeah,
as
yeah.
in
Gotcha.
Order of the Phoenix.
Confused, and then I caught up.
Yeah.
We're good.
So I like the, you know, the little teenage drama that gets interwoven in between and all of like the inner. So this book to me always felt like it gave me the most insight into like Hogwarts, like living in Hogwarts. Like you get, I think, more developed relationships with the professors. You get more looks at how the teenagers themselves are interacting with each other. And then you also get the backstory of like, okay, now we're starting to understand Voldemort. Now we're starting to piece this together. And then at the end, it's this gut punch. It feels like now we've caught up to everything by the end of this book. And like now the next book is going to be like, we're going into it with all of the knowledge and a clear-cut idea for how we're going to handle it. And then I get sidetracked in a bunch of camping, but like at least we tried.
I'll give you with this book, it does seem to me to be the most realistic, other than book 7, in terms of how things would actually play out.
Yes.
It would be, yes, I don't know what Malfoy is up to, because why would I happen to stumble upon him in the moment of doing the very thing that I was hoping to observe? Or, like, yes, I'm getting the information from Dumbledore, but I have no idea how it's going to apply to anything yet. He's just telling me stuff. Or, like, Tonks wandering around in this chapter. Like, I have no idea the fact that she loves Lupin. Like, it's just people are doing things without really telling me, and that's how life works. And,
yep.
And having it end with Dumbledore's death and having that gut punch, that's how it would feel. And being like, now what do we do? Are we screwed? Is there a way to come back from this without him? Is a very scary reality. And I think that's how war would feel.
I think also to your point for this book being different, I think what makes this book satisfyingly different for me is that for every other book we've essentially been told by Dumbledore, we're too young and he doesn't trust Harry.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first book now where he's like, I am going to treat you as an adult.
All it took was for him to be dying.
I was literally just thinking that.
So, do you guys have anything else?
We wanted to talk about Universal.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Speaking of remembering things.
Speaking of remembering things, we got sidetracked with the whole Draco Malfoy conversation that I completely forgot. Yes, you two recently went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
We did.
Which I did talk about a little bit on one of the previous episodes.
Yes, and there is the stream that you can find that you guys did at Hogwarts a Pod Instagram. A little brief,
It might be a
10-minute stream.
little hard to hear us, but there was a show going on in the back, so
We
did
tried.
our best.
So,
We did try.
you talked about a little bit on the stream, but what are some of your favorite things from the Wizarding World? Did you guys have like a favorite place that you ate at? Any kind of favorite like fan interaction kind of thing?
So we kind of talked briefly about this on the stream, but I'm a big fan of Diagon Alley.
Do you prefer Diagon over Hogsmeade?
Over Hogsmeade.
Okay.
And I prefer Hogsmeade.
Yes. So you're getting good perspectives on this. I really like how colorful it is. I really like all of the little signs and the things in the windows, and I think it's very well, it's just it's a neat little area to just kind of walk through and hang out because there's just so many small details. I like the dragon breathing fire.
That heat that you feel from it is
It's
real.
It's
Cool.
intense.
It's fun. I like that the street shuts down basically every time it happens because everyone pulls out their phone and they wait and they wait and they wait and they go, and then I was like, yeah.
Sometimes people clap and it's
Yeah, they do.
funny.
It's funny.
We didn't get to see the Death Eaters marching, which made me a little
I don't think
sad.
I've ever seen that either.
I
actually.
just saw random clips of it on Instagram. And I'm like, I didn't even know that they did that.
That'd be really
but,
cool.
That would be pretty sweet to see. I also really like that they have Borgin and Burke's. I had a really nice interaction with one of the women working at Borgin and Burke's. So she saw me wandering around with my camera and I was trying to take a bunch of pictures. So she called me over and she started pointing out like different display items that I
love
hadn't
that.
noticed before. So, like, we're going to have a photo eventually of, like
Like
there
up
was
by the ceiling. What was it? A troll?
Yeah, there was a troll's foot on
Yeah.
one of the bookcases that I totally missed because I was busy looking at all the other stuff, and she was, like, pointing out masks and things.
Yeah.
And the vanishing cabinet, which I also didn't realize was there, and then we found.
And it has a tweeting bird
It
inside
has a tweeting
which
bird.
is
You
really
walk
cool.
close to it.
There's
yeah.
also the trunk that I think is supposed to be like Barty Crouch Jr.'s.
Yeah.
That it's like knocking is against
Yeah.
the trunk.
I always have to, like, just check in with myself and reevaluate who I am, because every time I walk into Nocturne Alley
Yeah.
and I go into Borgin and Burke's, I'm like, why do I find this so unbelievably cool?
You know
Welcome
why?
to the dark side.
Like,
Because there's skulls.
it is.
This is why I'm surprised you're not a Slytherin.
My mom was excited too. She was like, "This is
was.
a cool shop. Look at all these skulls
Seriously,
everywhere."
genuinely,
No, it is cool.
It is a
very
fantastic
cool.
They have
shop.
some gorgeous skulls.
Yes.
They have gorgeous everything.
Yeah.
Like, everything is very
There's
finely
just-
done.
Something about being in the darkness. I mean, like that. My dad was even pointing out to us, like there was the projection of the skeleton that was, what was it, dancing or something like that. He's like, "Look how cool that is." I'm like, "I know that's. I love it when there's the
There's
bones."
just something about that shop that I'm like, every time, it is so worth visiting.
Going
Yeah.
in there always makes me feel proud to be a Slytherin. It's like when anywhere else I'm like, ah. And then I go in there and I'm like, yeah. This was a
I know
good
everybody
thing.
wants to go to the Weasley's Wizard Wheezes shop, and it is fun, and it's
Yeah.
cool, and it's great, and it's got some great souvenirs that you can get, because fun labels and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But
I
that
think
Borgin
that's
Burke
also
shop.
because you see
Yeah.
a lot of Deathly Hallows stuff in that shop, and you really don't see those references elsewhere. I think it's just something about death and that whole. I mean, when we get to the Tale of Three Brothers, oh my gosh, I'm going to I can't wait for that chapter.
That's an amazing story, and how they animated it for the movies is
It's my favorite part of the movie.
well, it's such
very
a,
Tim Burton.
I love it.
it's a very shock difference. Like, it's a cut to the story, and it's so
It's
different and
so
unique. But anyway,
good.
you guys saw the show, right? The Tale
We
of the
saw
Three Brothers.
some of the show.
We were live streaming during it, so
Yeah.
we were half paying attention.
We were happy, but we saw Death, so you
yeah,
were
and the
happy.
invisibility cloak is cool.
Yeah, that was fun. We did get butterbeer. I'm a very big fan of the frozen butterbeer.
I don't like butterbeer. I don't like butterscotch, but it was so hot that I even had one of those.
Did you try the butterbeer ice cream? Because that was really good, too.
I did a long time ago, but I didn't have it.
I was surprised at how good it was. I wasn't expecting it.
I had something else. Maybe it wasn't ice cream, because was that new? Or is
It's from Fortescue's.
Okay. No, I think I had that a long time ago, and it was good. I like the butterbeer supply that they have, but I can see how if you don't like butterscotch, you're not going to like
Yeah,
No,
that's
it-
butterbeer.
But the iciness of it was
Yeah.
much needed. It was fun to going and seeing my parents' perspective because they had never been before, and granted, a lot of the rides they couldn't go on just because they're old and they didn't want to hurt their backs, or motion sickness was a big thing, especially for my dad. But they really enjoyed the Hogwarts Express. We did
Such a cool one.
We did the ride over to
Hogsmeade.
so we got to see like the Dementors attacking, which my mom was like, "This technology is amazing." Like she was so impressed by it. It was really, really cute.
It's a much better ride that way than going Hogsmeade.
Oh,
and
100%. 100%. But yeah, no, I really like Hogsmeade. I love seeing the castle. I still remember the first time I went with you.
Yeah.
I almost I think, did I cry?
You did cry.
I was
You
so
cried multiple times.
I was so overwhelmed by everything. I was like, this is amazing.
Every time we got, so when we first went, it was, I think, 2013.
I think so.
And they hadn't built Diagon Alley yet. It was just Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
And we went in the queue for the castle, and it was like 2 hours or around
And
an hour
well,
and a half.
the ride
or
was
something.
shut down. We just
Yeah.
went through first just to take pictures of
Yes.
and we took pictures.
We
of
took pictures of everything. I think you cried every time we changed rooms. I think that the wait time was like 90 minutes, and we went through in like 2 hours because we
Yes.
just kept letting people go in front of us because
Yeah.
we were just taking photos of
I mean,
everything.
God, the one classroom with like the skeleton of the thestral or dragon
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah, it's
jars with those stacks of skulls and big spiders and spooky things.
You saw the Pensy.
I got
which
very
you loved.
excited. I love the Pensy.
I love that ride so much. So much. Every time I go there, it's multiple times I ride it. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, my one critique. For those who are older or have an issue, that movable ramp, and the actual like
it goes very quickly.
It goes quick, and not only is the ramp to get on it moving, the actual like I don't even know what you call them, buggy or whatever you actually get into for the ride is also moving at the same time. Yeah. So for people that have some balance issues, that might be difficult.
I was also surprised with the Gringotts ride, because we had remembered it as being fairly smooth, and we're like, oh, my dad can go on it. It's tame. It's fine. It basically makes you go, like, was it all the way forward? It was like a tilt was extreme.
Yeah.
For the first drop or something like that.
It was a lot more angled than I remembered it being.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more intense.
Yeah.
That way.
So if you are a motion sickness person, or you worry about your back.
Yeah, so I can be a little hit or miss when it comes to motion sick. I really like the Escape from Gringotts, but sometimes in it I can get a little off. There hasn't been a single time that I haven't ridden Forbidden Journey and felt like I was going to vomit immediately, like on the ride. Like I get 3/4 of the way through the ride, and then I'm just sitting there being like, A, I thought this wasn't as bad as this is, and B, I hope I don't puke.
Wow.
Like I'm like gripping the thing of like, breathe. I don't know what it is about that ride that just...
I mean, it whips you around a couple of times.
I think that's the,
It's a couple of quick dives.
Yeah.
But I think what I like about it so much... One, it's very immersive.
I love that ride. That's why I keep riding it.
It's very immersive, but it also reminds me of my favorite ride at Disney, which is Soarin', because it gives you some of the same vibes of like going over the grounds and stuff like that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
You rode Hagrid's motorbike...
Yes.
Whatever this time, and you didn't get stung by bees.
I did get stung by bees.
I love that ride too. I love that ride.
I talked about it a little bit on one of the previous podcasts, but yeah, I was in the motor car. I did the single line because it was 85 minutes long, and we were not about that life. And it was really fun. I mean, like, I'm not a roller coaster person. If it goes upside down, you went on a roller coaster with me once, Dan, that went upside down. Do you remember how, like...
You were out of it for like 20 minutes.
It was bad. This does not go upside down. It does go fairly quickly. I think it... What was this? Like, goes up to 60 miles per hour or something like that. It goes really
There's
fast.
one sharp backwards motion.
Yeah.
And there's a drop, I think.
Yeah. But no, it was cute seeing, like, all the various creatures around and like, the scenes with Hagrid and him being like, don't tell anyone that I took you on this ride. That bit was cute. But I'm similar with you. I like seeing all the signs. I think it's really clever to see the stuff in the shop windows. I think it's cool whenever you see someone with a wand interacting with one of the spots that will make, like, umbrella start to rain, or the fountain start to spurt out, or something move in the windows. I think that's so cool that they did that.
Your dad was pointing those out to me.
Yeah, he loved those. He was getting... He got into it. My dad has never read the Harry Potter series, you guys. It's so sad. I think he's seen the movies once, maybe. I know they're all recorded on the TV and just sitting there waiting for somebody to watch them, and they're probably going to sit there for another 5 years. But he was getting a kick out of it, too, so that was cute.
This has been a robust episode. This has been a massive episode, so we hope you enjoy it all.
This is your fault for having us both on.
That's fair.
Can we do it again?
Yeah, it will probably happen again. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, leave a 5-star review, comment, participate in the polls that we leave on Spotify. That really, really helps. If you're listening to this anywhere else, there's a support the podcast link that you can donate financially. That would be awesome. We put in a lot of time and a lot of effort into this. And with that, I think we will wrap it up because they are getting hyper. So it's been a long, late night of recording. So we appreciate all you guys listening and making this worth it to put it out for you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will be back next week. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @HogwartsAPod.